Hey, paisanos, it's the Super Mario Brothers Super Show!
And with those simple words began the tightest 30 minutes of children's entertainment ever written. Well, not really. The Super Mario Brothers Super Show was more like a crazed variety show for kids, underpinned by the irresistible siren song of Nintendo branding. There were funky-ass songs.
You're in for a treat, so hang on to your seat. Get ready for adventure and remarkable feats. You'll meet Koopas and Troopas, the princess and the others. Hanging with the plumbers, you'll be hooked on the brothers.
Laugh-tracked sitcom-style sketches bookending every episode. Recognizable guest stars like Inspector Gadget and Cyndi Lauper.
I was supposed to meet Captain Lou Albano for lunch for a picnic, and all I found was these.
Oh, Rubber Band's for his beard.
And you never really knew what to expect when you tuned in. The live-action portion starring Lou Albano and Danny Wells as Mario and Luigi had their charm, but the centerpiece of the show was the Super Mario Bros. Cartoon. In retrospect, it was pretty goofy, as it was made for a younger audience.
I want my feet licked.
Don't make it weird, King Koopa. Yeah, we didn't call him Bowser consistently back then, but it was so cool to see video game characters fully animated and voiced on TV every weekday that we didn't even mind that much of the show was Mario and Luigi running around yelling Mamma Mia and making bad plumbing jokes.
Tell me one more time how a plumber knows he's in trouble. Where did he gets that? Sinking feeling.
On Fridays, The Legend of Zelda replaced the Mario cartoon.
This is the Triforce of Wisdom, Link. The evil wizard Ganon has the Triforce of Power.
As epic as his games were, Link had always been a mute character to this point, with the player's imagination filling in the blank slate of his personality. Watching him bicker and battle with Ganon on TV, with plenty of enemies and sound effects straight from the NES, was a weekly thrill. The popularity of these cartoons reflected the growing cultural and commercial relevance of video games at the dawn of the 90s. But for TV producers who wanted a piece of that Nintendo loot, there weren't many game franchises with a high enough profile to carry an entire show. If you had the rights to Mario or Zelda, or a few years later Sonic the Hedgehog, then you had enough familiar characters and settings to populate at least a few dozen episodes of a cartoon. But if you didn't have the rights to A-list game characters, what might you try instead? I've got it. Instead of focusing on one main character the kids all love, what if we animated a whole bunch of characters that the kids sort of like, from various games, together in the same show? The quantity over quality approach. That line of thinking gave us Captain N, the Game Master. It premiered in late 1989, around the same time as the Mario show. But as a Saturday morning cartoon not tethered to live-action segments, Captain N featured full 22-minute running times. Its cast of characters was drawn from popular, but slightly less famous NES titles. There was Simon Belmont from Castlevania, Pit from Kid Icarus, although they just call him Kid Icarus here, whatever, Mega Man.
Affirmative.
And eventually they added Game Boy as a character in a particularly brazen marketing move. Like, he doesn't have a name, he's just Game Boy.
I am called Game Boy. I am programmed to play games.
I like to imagine he was the animated ancestor of BMO from Adventure Time. When I say these were second-tier characters, yes, their games were popular, but there were only a few Mega Man and Castlevania games back then, not dozens as there are now, and not every kid played every game during the NES era. The cartoon threaded the needle by presenting characters that weren't too obscure for a general audience of gamers. Captain N also acknowledged both the real world and the game world as separate but connected, the main character being a kid named Kevin who gets sucked into his TV screen during the show's intro. Talk about wish fulfillment.
The legend foretold of your coming to help restore freedom to our world. That's why it gave you that super power pad and zapper.
Kevin is like the Jesus Christ of Videoland, equipped with officially licensed Nintendo products to blast enemies and impress the princess. Right, Princess Lana. She's not from a Nintendo game, but video games have princesses, so the show has to have one. The genius of Captain N as a series was that you could use it to pitch a different game to your impressionable audience every week. This episode is in the Metroid game world. This one is in Tetris world. How about Dragon Warrior World? Get the kids into RPGs. Paperboy World? That doesn't sound very exciting, but it moves product. I would rather watch this show than the Zelda or especially Mario cartoons. It had just as many corny jokes, but didn't rely on lazy movie parodies. for the most part. It brought to life a wider range of game worlds and characters, and the longer running time allowed for proper 3-act stories. Captain N was an average Saturday morning cartoon, even if it's only remembered thanks to its Nintendo tie-ins. It could have been worse. And I know this, because a worse show did exist. Allow me to introduce you to the Power Team. It launched in 1990 as a clone of Captain N. There's no other way to put it. The comparison is unavoidable. It's another low-budget cartoon combining characters from different Nintendo games into a team, but it also had something in common with the Mario and Zelda cartoons in that it shared its half-hour format with a live-action framing device. The show was called Video Power, hosted by Johnny Arcade, an impetuous young dickhead with unfettered access to every console and game imaginable. He showcased tips and tricks, plus previews of new games. Check out his so-called review of Mega Man 3, which is a supercut of Johnny fucking up and dying.
He is fast, he is powerful, and he is metal. And in this one, there's a whole army of whacked out enemies after Mega Man. So keep your eyes open because they're all tough. There's Top Man, he sends Mega Man spinning. Shadow Man, a real ninja nut job. Gemini Man, kind of like the Twin Towers of Trouble. And Snake Man, Needle Man, this man, that man. Oh, man.
Aside from the novelty of seeing gameplay footage on broadcast TV, these segments engendered consumerist lust for electronics and envy for Johnny's collection. Aw man, he even has a TurboGrafx 16. The only time I ever saw TurboGrafx in person was in the waiting room at my dentist's office. But enough torturing myself with visions of games I never got to play. Let's get to the cartoon. The intro depicts Johnny Arcade, now in animated form, although the voice actor isn't the same kid from the live-action part of the show. And he's somehow bringing video game characters to life, into the real world. It's the same shit as Captain N, except in reverse and with even less explanation. Here's the lineup Johnny put together. Aside from the blandly generic name of the Power Team, just tell me, who are these guys even supposed to be? Although Captain N's character designs were exaggerated versions of the source material, they remained identifiable. For example, Simon Belmont was never a blonde, spray-tanned bodybuilder in the games, but then again his character sprite barely had a fucking face on NES. Given the context that he's from a Nintendo game and carries a whip, it's simple enough to figure out, okay, that's Simon Belmont, stupid as he may look. But this nightmare blunt rotation, even knowing they are each from a Nintendo game, if you haven't seen this show before, then I doubt you can correctly identify more than one of these fools. There is a reason why these 5 characters were put together. I don't want to spoil it just yet, but see if you catch any clues as I introduce them one by one. Let's start with the guy from the biggest game franchise among them, this blonde barbarian dude. You know him, but you may not know you know him, because he doesn't look like his in-game character at all. This is Kuros from Wizards and Warriors, except now he looks like a He-Man ripoff. Unlike his teammates, I don't think his games need much introduction. As a player character, Kuros never had much dialogue other than yes, no, bye, and exit. His personality was expressed through his movement, his springy jump, derpy sword thrust, and the way he pathetically flops around when falling or dying. A goofy knight could have worked in the cartoon, but there are others to fill the comic relief role. Kuros at least retains the bearing of a noble knight. He's well-spoken, hardly the lumbering caveman he might appear.
All my life, through countless games, through endless levels of play, I have prepared for this moment.
He mostly relies on brute strength in combat, since it's frowned upon to slice people up in a kid's cartoon. That means his sword can only be used on inanimate objects, to deflect projectiles, or to shoot lasers, just like Link does on his show. The main thing identifying this guy as Kuros within the context of the show is that sometimes he fights the wizard Malkill, his canonical arch-nemesis. If all of the Power Team members were from games of the same caliber as Wizards and Warriors, this might not be so bad. But if we generously consider Kuros a Tier 3 NES character, it only goes downhill from here. Next up, the elephant's hemorrhoid in the room, this freaky looking red troll guy. At first I thought he might be the cool Spot from 7-Up. I don't know what's more amazing, the fact that a soda mascot starred in multiple video games, or that they're surprisingly decent. How did Cool Spot ever become a thing? He's just a red circle. But then again, Pac-Man is just a yellow circle. It's not Cool Spot, as proven by the green hair, which makes this thing look like a tomato? Maybe a Killer Tomato? There was an Attack of the Killer Tomatoes game on NES, but it was released years later, so wrong again. He is a tomato, though.
Hey! It's tomatoes, you jerk! Tomatoes!
Say hello to Quirk from the Game Boy title of the same name. Although I never played it, I do remember seeing this game advertised in comic books pretty often. Quirk is a puzzle game where you move blocks to open paths through a maze and advance from one room to the next. Or you can in theory, but I suck pretty bad at this. I am really not the person to ask about puzzle games, unless it's Lemmings. I fucking love Lemmings. But Quirk seems okay. It's well suited to the Game Boy's capabilities and portability in that you can pick it up and play a few levels on a whim. Quirk's abilities in the show are nothing special. He can bounce around and knock things down, which is as close as they could get to the game logic of pushing blocks to solve puzzles. He's the primary comic relief character, and his short temper makes him the biggest shit talker in the crew.
I'm red and I'm round and I'm taking you down.
We started with a magic-wielding warrior, then added a sentient tomato. I can't wait to see who's next. Oh, it's just a guy with a basketball. With all the great Nintendo titles out there, they picked a character who looks like he could be from any random basketball game. Though in fact, he's from a very specific game, Arch Rivals. There are about 10 basketball games on the NES, some good, some garbage, but none of the others play at all like Arch Rivals. It's a 2-on-2 affair featuring wacky characters, on-court hazards, and the ability to square up and sock opponents in the jaw. If Slam Dunk on Commodore 64 was the Stone Age, the first sports game I ever played where Sucker Punch was a legal move, then Arch Rivals was the Bronze Age, a distinct developmental leap towards the golden future that would be NBA Jam. But at this point they hadn't quite nailed the fast-flowing action that would make NBA Jam so addictive. Controlling your player in Arch Rivals is more awkward than it should be, and I resort to mashing punch whenever I don't have the ball. Another drag is that after every made basket, you see one of these cutaway animations, which get old fast. Our third power team member is drawn from the roster of selectable players, Tyrone. In the show, he doesn't get any special skills, he just flings his balls at people and things. This really sucks, because without a basketball, he's essentially powerless.
Your basketball's out of this game, Tyrone. My ball!
Sometimes he throws Quirk around as a weapon, and I wish they had made those combo attacks Tyrone's go-to move. At this time, black cartoon characters weren't permitted to have much personality other than being clean-cut nice guys. Tyrone's signature trait is gently mocking the others when they're being too self-serious or boring.
Aw, man! Would you chill?
But he's the most generic and forgettable team member. Seriously. How lame is it that Tyrone has to wear a basketball uniform every second of the day, just so people remember what he does?
I've known dead dragons that smelled better.
Especially in comparison to our next team member, who's truly one of a kind. Bigfoot is our only character somewhat based on real life, one of the original monster trucks, and a pop culture staple of the 1980s. I watched a theatrical screening of Roadhouse the other night, and I had forgotten that it prominently features a Bigfoot truck crushing cars and kicking ass. People were really into Bigfoot back then, although they were also breathing a lot of leaded gasoline fumes at the time. But hey, I've definitely heard dumber ideas than this for a Nintendo game. Technically, I don't know whether the cartoon needed to license the game at all, or just the likeness of the Bigfoot truck, but let's take this one for a spin anyway. It's a relatively simple game, but more nuanced than you might expect. The nationwide tournament alternates between frenetic cross-country races and events like tractor pulling, hill climbing, and mud racing. If you want a game where you just hold A to accelerate, then look elsewhere. Bigfoot is all about mastering fidgety controls with a lot of D-pad tapping and gear shifting, and you can see I'm not having much luck. Entrance fees and upgrades cost money, so if you keep losing you'll go broke and get a game over. Like Arch Rivals, it's easier to overlook this game's flaws with a second player at your side. Bigfoot's animated incarnation is the most overpowered member of the team. He's not only their transportation, he can talk, with a cowboy accent no less.
There's more than one way to crush a monster truck.
He can extend his wheels and bumpers to fight, shoot lasers, and communicate remotely with Johnny Arcade. His weakness is that he can't accompany the team in any indoor locations.
That's a downright lie.
Bigfoot famously causes a lot of destruction, but he never hurts anyone. He's like a stuntman in car form. But the last member of our fun kids cartoon show is a straight up goddamn mass murderer. Narc was one of the most violent arcade games of its time, and even the NES version was pretty savage, despite recoloring the blood spatter yellow on the box. You play as Max Force, tasked with cleaning up the streets by painting them with the guts of the criminal underworld. Nintendo of America was famously fussy about depicting religious imagery in games, but a mob of psychotic clowns stabbing me in front of an adult bookstore? All good. For a few levels of brain-dead action, you could do worse than Narc. I have a major issue with the control scheme though. Jumping and crouching are the same button. Just think for a minute how much sense that makes. Tap B to jump, press B to crouch. The A button works the same way, controlling both the rocket launcher and machine gun. This makes the game way harder than it should be. If a home console can't accommodate all the control mechanisms of the arcade, then change them or leave some things out. I've been focusing on the NES versions of these games because those were the products the TV show was selling to kids. For that same reason, Max's character got a family-friendly makeover. He doesn't even use guns in the cartoon. Instead, he's the science and gadget guy.
58 yards, wind 11 miles north-northwest. We need a 93-mile-per-hour speed on a 26-degree rep.
His personality, too, is almost robotic. He's so square and uptight that he barely comprehends any form of joking or sarcasm.
Okay, hit the pause button.
There are no pause buttons in this world, Quirk.
So that's our crew, and you'll note the absence of any princesses this time. The power team gets no bitches. The other common trait among these 5 characters, the reason they're all here, is that their NES games were published by Acclaim, who partnered with 2 other companies to produce and market the show. They published a lot of other games for the system as well, and I can only imagine a world where we got a power team consisting of Krusty the Clown, George Foreman, Knight Rider, and the Lee brothers from Double Dragon. But for obvious reasons, those characters were unavailable.
Bada bing, bada boom, I'm done. Learn from a professional, kid.
The show's villains were drawn from acclaimed titles, though. Rarely, Malkill from Wizards and Warriors or Evil Produce from Quirk's World are the bad guys, but the power team mostly battles Mr. Big and his 2 lackeys.
Easy, Mr. Big. He didn't mean it.
They also originate from the game world of Narc, but instead of operating a militarized drug ring, the cartoon finds them running small-time scams like stealing treasure from a museum or hoarding all the tomatoes in town to jack up the price of pasta sauce.
Mamma mia!
This is a low-stakes show, without even the globe-trotting adventures offered by the likes of Inspector Gadget. The fight between Mr. Big and our heroes is almost entirely confined to the fictional town of Milburg. The most interesting plot point in this series is perhaps also its dumbest, and it's the only real threat Mr. Big poses. He possesses the power team's game packs, one for each character. You may recall that Nintendo themselves used the term pack promotionally, perhaps to disassociate their product from the cartridges of the failed Atari systems. Game packs in the show can return someone to their game world.
All right, you turkeys. One false move and Quirk gets warped home.
If the game pack is then destroyed, it would essentially kill that character. There's no explanation as to how Mr. Big got them, though. He just has the game packs right from the first episode. There are a few instances where someone gets zapped into their game world, sometimes intentionally, like when Quirk goes back to rescue his girlfriend. At this point, Mr. Big could have destroyed Quirk's game pack and declared victory, but of course he dicks around until his plan gets foiled. Breaking a Nintendo game is easy. Haven't these guys ever seen The Angry Video Game Nerd? There are all kinds of inconsistencies with this game pack mechanic. Are these special copies of the games, or can anyone rent them from Blockbuster and start firing lasers out of them? For that matter, if Johnny Arcade himself has this huge game collection, why doesn't he zap the bad guys with his own copy of Narc, instead of sitting at home bossing the power team around? The heroes do want to return to their own worlds, but only if all of them get to go home, and they can't do that until they banish all the bad guys. But that will never happen because then there would be no more show. It didn't last long anyway, with a total of 35 episodes across 2 seasons. It looks cheap because it was.
Oh man, here he goes again.
Well, it does, Tyrone.
And recycled most of its music from Kid Video, another series I'll try to resist going on a 20-minute tangent about.
Ay, ay, ay. We look like
Cartoons.
I'd like to say that the existence of the Power Team was outright insulting, in that it implied kids were so stupid that we would watch absolutely anything as long as it had to do with video games. But I can't really argue with that line of reasoning given that we did watch it, and I also just watched it again right now. Despite beginning this rewatch with the expectation that the Power Team was the worst video game cartoon ever made, I now have some grudging appreciation for this underdog of a show that got by without the star power of Mega Man or Sonic or Mario. So what was the worst video game cartoon ever? Probably that fucking Donkey Kong Country show.
Looky here, look what I've got. Don't think I won't let little Diddy drop.
Hold it now, hold it now, hold it right there. You wouldn't drop, couldn't drop. You wouldn't